Hello and welcome, friends. Let us today have a look at the various stages in the system development life cycle. We have already had a brief look at what is basically a system development life cycle and what are the various stages. Now we have to discuss all these stages in more detail, right? So let us start with the first stage, which is the investigation. What do we mean by investigation? What do we do in the investigation phase? Now please understand, in investigation we basically study the viability of the proposed information system. Naturally, we are planning a new system. That is why we are having this particular process of system development, right? Now, whatever new system we are planning, we have to find out first of all how viable it is, how workable it is, how practical it is, whether it is going to serve the organization objectives or not, whether the organization has resources or not to implement that particular system, and whether that particular system is going to be adopted by the employees or the users in the organization. So all this is to be actually investigated in this particular phase, right? And you understand that whenever information systems are being implemented in a particular organization, it is meant, these information systems are basically meant to provide some solution to some problem that the organization is facing, right? I hope you understand why I'm also referring to client organization. See, I have told you that many a times there are companies like Infosys and TCS which don't only develop systems for their own organization, but they also develop systems for their clients, for their customer organizations. All the organizations may not have their own IT wing, and for them, for these kind of organizations, they have to basically get such systems custom made by some vendor like Infosys or TCS. So many a times I might be using the word client organization, right? Now, I was talking about the fact that basically whenever we are coming up with these kind of systems, basically they are meant to be solutions to the problems being faced by the client organization, right? So naturally the client organization is facing some problem and they need a solution, and the solution is being provided by the information systems, right? For example, let's say a particular a new organization which has come up only recently, they are clueless about which of their products, which of their brands are earning them the largest amount of profit, which of the brands being sold by them is generating more profits, and which ones are not as profitable. Supposing they are clueless about it. So now this is a problem for the organization, because now since they are clueless about which particular brand is generating me more profit and which particular brand is generating me less profit, they simply would not be able to rationalize their resource allocation. They would not be able to allocate more resources to the more profit making brands, naturally, because they are simply not aware of which particular brand is earning them more revenues, more profits, right? So naturally now this is a problem that the organization is facing, and for which we may install a system which will provide a solution to this kind of a problem, and it will provide information regarding which particular brand is selling better, which particular brand is costing more, and which particular brand is bringing in more revenues and more profits, right? So this is what I meant when I said that the system development life cycle, within the system development life cycle, we are trying to find out whether the particular system that we are proposing is basically providing a solution to the end user problem. So this is what we meant by the solution and the end user problem, right? So basically we have to understand how and to what extent would the new system would be able to solve the problem that the organization, the client organization, is facing, right? And how do we do this? We basically conduct feasibility studies. We try to check the organizational feasibility. Does proposed system serve the organizational objectives? Do they mesh in well with the organizational objectives and organizational goals and the organizational strategy? So naturally they would have a value for the organization only if they fit in well with the organizational strategy and they help the organization achieve its objectives, right? Just the example that I took just a little while ago. If the new information system helps the organization get a clearer picture of which particular brand is generating more profit for the organization, then naturally it is fulfilling the organizational objective, because now the organization can decide which particular brand to allocate more resources to. Naturally the one which is more profitable, right? So their objective was to basically rationalize their resource allocation, and that was possible. It was possible for the organization to actually do that it would be possible for the organization to actually do that, to rationalize their resource allocation after the information system which is proposed is implemented. So naturally it would help the organization in achieving its organizational objective. So in that sense it would be feasible. But then economic feasibility, and I hope we have discussed this earlier, so I'm not going to delve much on this. The costs that you will be incurring in the installation of the new system should certainly be less than the benefit that would accrue to you after the installation of the new system, of the proposed system. However, we have seen this earlier also. Whenever you are talking about the costs, you talk about the whole life cycle cost of the system, not the cost of installation. You have to talk about the cost of training the users also. We have to talk about the cost of changes that might be made that might have to be made at the supplier end or at the customer end once a particular information system has been implemented. So in that sense you talk about all the possible costs, not only just one cost, and you have to take into account the periodic maintenance cost as well. So this is what we mean by saying the life cycle cost of the new information system has to be considered, right? And it should be less than the benefits that would accrue from that new system, the proposed system. Then technical feasibility. Do we have the resources? Do we have the technology? Do we have the hardware and the software and the communication devices for proper implementation of the system? And if we don't have, can we procure them easily, or are they not going to be available, or are they going to be very, very costly? So that is something that will have to be considered, right? And then the operational feasibility. What do we mean by the operational feasibility? And now probably this is the most important aspect in the whole feasibility analysis, feasibility study. You have to find out whether the stakeholders, specifically the users, maybe the ones who are entering the data, maybe the ones who would be using or analyzing the data, or who would be making use of the information provided by the information system, are they all willing to, do they have the ability in the first place? Are they technically proficient? Can they make use of the new information system? Would they be able to understand the new information system and put it to the best possible use? And would they be willing to do that? And many a times we have seen earlier also, many a times there is huge resistance, because generally people tend to dislike change. So if you are installing a new proposed system, then there might be a lot of resistance. So you have to investigate this aspect also, whether the stakeholders, the proposed users, would they have the ability, and would they be ready and willing to use the new system, right? So this is what you have to basically find out in the investigation analysis, and depending on the result you will decide whether or not to move to the analysis stage. Why? Because if you find that the organization feasibility is very, very poor, economic and technical and operational feasibilities are also not they are also not up to the mark, then naturally what will you do? You will shelve the project. You would not go ahead with the proposed implementation naturally. So this is one thing you have to keep in your mind. If the investigation tells you that it's not feasible to have the new system, the proposed system, then don't go ahead. You don't have to go ahead after that, right? So this is one stage wherein you take a call whether you will go ahead with the system development or you will junk the project altogether. Then once you decide that okay, you will go ahead because it is feasible to have this new system, then what will you do? You will go for the analysis part, and herein would come in the system analyst. I hope you remember we have talked about the system analyst in the MIS stakeholders also as one of the stakeholders in MIS, and system analysis is done by the system analysis, and basically system analysis is the link between the user and the technical person, the technical personnel who will be developing the system. So the system analyst will be bridging the gap between the user, what all the user requires, and he will find this out in the layman language in which the user is expressing himself, and then he'll convert into technical specifications so that the appropriate information system can be developed and designed and developed, right? So he's the link between the designers and the users. What will he do, and what will analysis entail? Study of the current system. First thing that will be there would be the study of the current systems. What all activities does the current system perform? What all resources does it make use of? And is it sufficient in itself, or is it meeting all the information needs that the organization has? And if it is not able to meet some of the information needs of the organization, what are those information needs which need to be met by the proposed system, by the new system? Then the analysis would also entail study of the functional requirement of organization. So what is the functional requirement of the organization? Functionally, what all does the organization require? What all information does the organization and its various functions require to be able to perform well, to be able to coordinately, to be able to operate in a coordinated fashion? This is what the analysis will try and find out. And the results of the analysis will act as input to the system design, which is the next stage. So whatever is found out in the analysis will act as an input for the system design stage, right? And in analysis, we also assess, basically, we have seen that investigation, when we were doing investigation, we said, okay, fine, we are going to go ahead with the proposed system, right? But herein, we are going to find out whether we need to come up with an altogether a different information system, or whether slight modifications in the existing information system would be sufficient. So this is the investigation that will have to be made here. This is the assessment that will have to be made here. In the investigation stage, remember, we found out whether we need to have a new system in place, whether we need to have a new system in place, and whether we need to continue with the same system because the new system is not possible. Here we have moved ahead and we are now saying, yes, we have to change the old system, but do we need to just modify the old system, the existing system, or do we need to altogether change it to a new system? Do we need to altogether get it replaced by the new system, or slight modifications will also do? So this is what we are going to find out here. Do we need to install altogether a new system? Of course, that is going to be a costlier option. And here we are going to find out whether we need to just bring in some improvements in the existing system, because this is going to be less costly. But then we have to find out which one is going to be useful for our purpose. Do we need to have an altogether a different system, or do we need to just bring in some modifications, and some slight modifications would be sufficient and they would serve our purpose. So this is another assessment that is made by the analyst, right? I hope you understand that when you are trying to think of system development lifecycle, system development does not only mean that you simply are having a manual information system and you are now installing a management information system. It could also be that you have a management information system operational in your organization, but you are planning to get it replaced by a more advanced management information system or a more developed management information system that will provide you richer array of information. So it could be both the cases basically. System development could mean both of them. It could be replacing the manual information system, or it could be modifying it and improving the existing management information system, right? Now let us talk about what will happen once we are through with the analysis. And I hope you remember that the next stage is the design and development stage. And of course, design and development are two different things. And as I said, you might find them as different stages, two different stages in some books also. Now what happens in the design and development stage? I hope you remember that the input is the feedback given by the analyst. So based on that, the designer would start working. So system design would depend on the inputs of the system analysis stage. Here what will happen, please understand, design and development, what will happen here, the system specification would be produced. What exactly would system be doing? What exactly would it look like? Would it have a knowledge base or not? Would it have a model base or not? Where from will it be capturing the data? All this stuff is basically outlined in the design stage, right? Now let's have a look at what we mean by the design and what we mean by the conceptual design and the detailed design. And within the design stage, we have got the two types of design. We start with the conceptual design and then we end up with the detailed design. Now what happens, conceptual is still in the conceptual stage. It is still at the concept stage, right? So that is why it's known as conceptual design. And please understand that the input for this particular stage is the statement of MIS requirements and objectives that are prepared by the system analyst. After the system analysis, now you have a basic idea of what we need, what all objectives have to be met by the MIS, the new proposed MIS, what all requirements are there, what all needs have to be satisfied by the new proposed MIS. So this is going to be the input to this particular stage, and naturally the output of this particular stage would be acting as the input for the next stage within this design, and that is the detailed design. What does it mean? What I'm trying to tell you is that the conceptual design would basically act as an input for the detailed design. So depending on whatever is there in the conceptual design, we'll go for the detailed design, right? And that is why here also have a look here just for a moment. The input here is the conceptual design report. So whatever we have done here, that is an input for the detailed design stage, and that is why I have mentioned it here, that the input would be the conceptual design reports, right? Now let us have a look at what actually is done in the conceptual design stage. The structure is specified, the structure of the new information system is specified, and overall performance is specified. So the broad structure is specified and the overall performance targets, performance levels are specified. This is the job of the conceptual design. This is what we do in the conceptual design stage. The structure of the information system and what all goals it has to achieve, what has to be the performance levels, that is specified at the conceptual design stage, right? And then depending on the conceptual design report, which will include these two aspects, we go for the detailed design, wherein we talk about the operational and construction specification. So the design is being operationalized. Design is actually getting converted into something which is more workable. So design gets operationalized in the detailed design stage, right? Fine. So this is the distinction between the conceptual design and the detailed design. Distinction number one, the input to conceptual design, we have discussed it here, is the information provided by the system analysis, right, regarding what actually the organization requires and what is going to be the objective of the new system, right? Its output will act as an input for the detailed design, right? And then here we will be specifying only the broad structure and the broad overall performance levels that we want. Here we will be coming up with the more detailed understanding of different tasks that will have to be performed by the information system. So here we'll get a clear-cut idea of the different modules that the information system will have, different tasks that it will perform, different inputs that it will require, and what all different outputs will it provide. So everything is specified in considerable detail, and that is why this is known as the detailed design. And this detailed design, now please understand, up till now we have discussed only this aspect, the design aspect, right, here and here. Now what happens, the output of the detailed design would be then made operational through coding, and this coding is basically the development part, the programming, right? Have a look here. We'll have a look at this. Now this basically is the development part, wherein the detailed design is being operationalized, is being converted into software programs, because here in detailed design we had seen what all tasks have to be performed, and this has been specified in detail. Now to perform all those tasks, what kind of programs do we need? These programs will have to be written here. These software programs, these codes have to be written here, right? And this stage becomes the development stage, and that is why I have basically clubbed design and development. You can talk about development as a different stage which will succeed the design stage, right? And for designing purpose, we have various design tools, which of course we are not going to discuss here because that is not part of the syllabus, but these design tools are there for the system designer, and using these design tools he'll do the detailed designing, and this detailed design will act as an input for the programmer, the software programmer, the person who will be doing the coding, the person who will be actually writing the software programs or the computer instructions in technical language, which we know as the development stage, right? So here now the product of the design and development would be the programs written for the information system to enable it to run smoothly. So now in a way we have with us a working model of the information system. In fact, the information system would be ready to be used at the development stage. Fine, after the development stage. But then what do we do after the development stage? We move over to implementation. Now we have developed the information system is up and ready, and now we can make use of it, we can start implementing it. So what do we do in the implementation stage? And I hope you remember that many a times we include conversion within the implementation, and in some books you would find that implementation and conversions have been shown as two different stages. So here we are adopting this particular approach. So here we'll first talk about the fourth stage for us would be implementation, and the fifth stage is going to be the conversion. So now what we will do in the implementation stage, we'll have to acquire, up till now we have written the information, we have actually prepared, we are done and dusted with as far as the information system is concerned. We have finalized it, but then we need hardwares and softwares so that the users can actually access that information system and make use of it. So that hardware and software would have to be acquired, would have to be purchased. Then the software, in case it needs to be purchased, then we will be purchasing the software package. It needs to be developed or modified, we will be doing the modification. The existing software that we already have, right? Then we will be preparing the user manuals. User manuals are what? They are written documents which guide the reader and which actually help the reader make use of different modules in the information system. Like when, for example, you are purchasing a TV, you get a user manual in which all the functions are they've been mentioned, and you can make use of the information, the user manual. You can read them and then you can accordingly operate the TV. So just like that, for the information system also, once the information system are there, then we have to prepare user manual so that the user can read these manuals whenever they require some information, and whenever they need to know how to operate the information system, they can go through these user manuals and can apply the knowledge, and so that they can operate the information systems well. So these are the user manuals which will have to be prepared, and the users of course will have to be trained. And then one modification that you may have to bring would be in the incentive system, because you want the new system to be implemented and you would want the new system to be adopted by the users, and for that you can tie up your rewards and punishments to the fast adoption of the new system. So those employees who are quick to learn how to operate the new system and how to utilize it, they probably can be provided some kind of an incentive. Or those who are laggards, they might be punished or reprimanded. So this is something that you'll have to bring in, and herein comes the HR aspect, right? Now, one more thing that you'll have to do is you'll have to test for errors and rectify the system. And how will we do this? Please understand, up till now, in the last stage that we had, the development stage, we had the whole information system ready. But some of the errors which are still there in the information system may skip the attention of the developer, right? However, when the actual users start using it, then these problems, these errors can come to light. And that is why we are saying that, for example, if in the implementation stage, when the users are being trained on the new information system, and some of the errors which are there in the information system, some programming errors, coding errors, or if they are not performing a particular task which they are expected to perform, these information systems are not able to perform a particular task, then such errors can come to light and they have to be immediately rectified. So this is another thing that you have to do in the implementation stage. Now please understand just one thing. I am hoping that you are not getting confused between what we mean by this software and purchasing software packages. This is not the information system that we are talking about. We are basically talking about the kind of application softwares that you have, or maybe the system softwares that you have, which you need to run your hardware, right? We have the information system ready with us, but then information system to be ready with us, which is ready with us, to start using that information system, you have installed it in a computer, but then if the computer doesn't boot up, if it doesn't start because the operating system is not working in the computer, then the information system is of no use. So basically here we are talking about that kind of a software, right? Or maybe just to keep our information system secure, we need a higher level of antivirus protection. So for that we will need to install antivirus softwares, utility softwares, which we know them as. They have to be installed in the computer systems that we have, or maybe they have to be updated. So all that groundwork will have to be done here in this particular stage, so that once the information system is installed, the computers work fine and they do not create a problem in the functioning of the information systems, right? Now once the implementation has has taken place, and we are ready with all these things, what are we going to go for next? We are going to go for conversion. What is conversion? Naturally, you are converting from an old system into a new system. How do you go about this process, right? Whether you do it in an instant, one fine day you decide that you will chuck off the old system and move ahead, install, set up and start using the new system, or you start doing it, or you think of doing it in a gradual manner. So that is what we are going to discuss here in conversions, introducing the new system and upgrading the old into new. So conversion, here we mean both. When we are introducing an altogether a new system, and when we are upgrading the old system into new, both were part of the system development life cycle, both were part of the system development. We had said earlier also, when you are planning a new system, you could be converting your manual information system into a management information system, or you could be working with a slightly different MIS and now you are changing it to a different MIS, or you could be just modifying the existing MIS, slight modification here and there, right? So in both the cases the conversion will have to take place, and there are 4 ways in which this conversion can be effected. One is called the parallel conversion. What will happen here? Please understand, both old and new system shall be used in the trial period. Why are we doing this? So that in case there is a problem with the new system that we have just now installed, we can go back to the old system, because many a times it might so happen and the organization may lose very important data. So what we will do, we'll go for the parallel conversion. We will maybe have a trial period of 1 month or 2 months or 2 weeks. In that time period, during that 2-week period or 2-month period for which we'll have our trials, we will have both the systems working parallelly. So we'll have both the old system as well as the new system working parallelly, right? Naturally it would entail a lot of cost, because you are basically now operating 2 systems, right? However, the advantage is, in case there's a problem with the new system, you can always switch back to the old system. And in the trial period, if it is found that the new one is okay and there's no problem with the new one, you can discard the old one and then you can move ahead with the single with the use of the new proposed system, and you will simply discard the older system. The second one could be the pilot conversion. What happens in a pilot conversion? We have discussed this term earlier also. Production management also, we discussed pilot production, and we talked about this in research methodology also, where we talked about the pilot questionnaire. So basically pilot is doing something at a very small scale, so that you can find out if there is any problem. In case there is any problem, you don't ramp it up. In case there is no problem, then you can ramp it up. You can ramp up the capacity. So this is what we mean by pilot conversion. Introduction in only few departments or only few workstations. If okay, then what we'll do, we'll implement it across the organization, right? If it's not okay, then we would do what? We would first modify, first do the rectification, then only implement, right? So this again is an advantage. You don't have to change all the systems, because once you have changed all the systems and then you find a problem, it is going to be a big issue for the organization. So what we do is, we introduce the new information system in only selective departments or in only selective offices, in only some selected workstations, and then once everything is found to be okay, then we actually implement the information system across the organization. Now there is one mistake here, so let me correct it. It should be selected and not selective, right? So let me do this change here. So this probably is going to be a better term. So this is how we go about the pilot conversion. Then what about the plunge conversion? Plunge is you dive into the new system. You simply implement the new system without worrying about the older system. You simply check it off and you simply discard the old system and you simply implement the new system. The advantage is you don't have to incur too many costs, because unlike in parallel conversion, you don't have to have two systems working at the same time. The risk is, however, that if something happens, if something goes wrong with the new system, if there is some problem with the new system, then you will have to face consequences, right? So this is the problem with plunge conversion. And then we have got the phasing. Now what happens in a phasing kind of a conversion? Please understand, new system is introduced in phases. So the new system is not introduced. What could happen, for example, one module is introduced first across the organization, then if it is working fine, then you move ahead with the second module. This way, in phases, you will go for the conversion. So in phases, you will discard the older system, and in phases, you will replace the older system by the new information system. So new information system is introduced in phases, and this is generally a good method when you are upgrading the old system, right? So do it in phases. Now, what is the difference between the pilot conversion and the phase conversion? Please understand, pilot conversion, we do a pilot. If everything is okay, we implement it across the organization. So in essence, there are only two steps involved. First the pilot, and then the full complete implementation. Here that is not the case. Here we can have 3 phases, 4 phases, 5 phases. So this way we can move ahead. I'll give you an example. If let's say we are introducing a new information system in our college, so one option could be that we are starting with the Department of Business Administration. If everything goes fine, then we implement in the whole college. Now this is an example of pilot conversion. The other option could be we first start it in the Department of Business Administration. Everything is fine. We move ahead with Department of Computer Applications. Again, everything is fine. We go to the Military Science Department. Again, everything is fine. Then let's go to the History Department. Everything is fine. And then we implement in the whole college. Now this is the phased conversion, right? So this is the difference. And this is how we have now converted the old system into the new system, basically replaced the old system by the new system, and we have now started using the new system, new information system across the organization. The last stage which now is left is maintenance. What do we do in the maintenance stage? We'll have to continuously monitor and modify in case the modifications are required. So you'll have to continuously monitor the new information system you have just now implemented. Now you'll have to monitor it. You have to keep looking for errors and bring in modifications wherever required. Now what kind of issues could come up, and why do you need modification? Many a times it could so happen that some unauthorized person has introduced some changes to the information systems that you are using. Some unauthorized person has gained access to the information system and he's made some changes which should not have been made by him, right? So naturally you'll have to do the modification, you'll have to reverse the changes, the unauthorized changes. So that is some kind of a modification. Many a times what might happen, maybe after 1 year or 2 years of the operationalizing of the new information system, users who are using it, they want some more utility functions to be brought into the new information system. So they will say, okay, we want this kind of a report, or let's say they would say that, okay, we are getting this report in this particular format, but we want a slightly different format also. So in such cases wherein there are some suggestions by the users, then you have to include those suggestions and you'll have to modify, bring in slight modification in the information system to satisfy such emerging requirements of the users also. It could also happen that a particular module, when it is being used by the user, is giving some error code, which means there is a problem with the programming, right? In that case also the maintenance will have to be affected, right? Then let's talk about the modifications. Whenever you are doing modifications, whenever you are bringing about any changes, adding in some more utility, as I said here, when there is a request from the users or making some changes, please do a cost benefit analysis first. You should ensure that the cost that you'll have to incur in modifying the existing system, the cost should always be less than the benefits of the modifications. The benefits that accrue to you should be more than the cost that you'll have to incur in bringing about the modification, right? And please also remember to document the changes. Why? You will also accordingly have to make changes in the user manual, because supposing you have changed a particular functionality, if you have changed a particular reporting format, if you have made some changes, now that particular change, those changes should be reflected in the user manual also. So user manuals will have to be updated, and the changes will have to be properly written down, so that if the user wants to know what changes have been made, he can actually read the document. So all the changes have to be written down, right, for further future references, right? With this, we have completed our discussion on all these 6 stages, but don't think that this is going to be the be all and end all of the system development life cycle. Once we enter the maintenance stage, we don't need to worry about anything else. It's not like that. And just to make sure that you understand what I'm trying to convey to you, I'll take you back to this particular diagram. I hope you see this arrow here. What do we mean? This is a closed loop, right? This is a closed loop, and this arrow here shows that even after maintenance, you might still again go for investigation. In what case? When naturally, supposing you have implemented a new information system now, and that is up and running, but then what will happen 10 years down the line? Don't you think you would probably need to again go for another round of system development, because the system which was, let's say, implemented in 2020 may not be of much relevance or much use for the organization in 2030? Don't you think that they will have to go for another round of system development which will fulfill their requirements that will come up in 2030? So then again another cycle would be initiated. So that is why it is a closed loop, which means after maintenance, it may so happen after some point of time you feel that you need an altogether a new system, and then you again go for the same system development life cycle and you start with the investigation stage. Okay then, thank you very much for your time. I hope you have understood the concept. In the next lecture, we'll be talking a little bit about the system analysts and what all attributes do they need to have to be able to perform well in their very important role of analyzing the system and providing inputs to the system designers and the developers. So this would be the discussion in the next session, and then we'll also talk a little bit about the various tools which are used by the system analyst. Till then, goodbye.